Maya never thought sharing an apartment with an alien would be this awkward. Sure, when she first moved in 6 months ago, she knew her new roommate was different. Kale was from somewhere in the Centauri system, part of the student exchange program at the university, but honestly, she thought it would be cool living with someone from another planet. Boy, was she wrong about the cool part. It started simple enough. Maya was finishing her graduate degree in xenobiology, studying how different species adapt to new environments. Having an actual alien roommate seemed like the perfect research opportunity. Plus, the rent was cheap, and the apartment was close to campus. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. Kale was the most mysterious person she'd ever met. He kept to himself, barely spoke during their few interactions, and had habits that made no sense. He never seemed to sleep at normal hours. She'd hear him moving around at 3 in the morning, then find him completely silent during the day. His diet was weird too. She'd buy groceries, and he politely declined everything she offered to share. Instead, he survived on these strange blue packets that arrived by special delivery once a week. And don't even get her started on how he looked. Not that she was staring or anything, but come on, the guy was impossible to ignore. Kale had this otherworldly grace, like he was floating instead of walking. His skin had this pale blue tint that seemed to shimmer under certain lights. His eyes were the most incredible shade she'd ever seen, like looking at stars reflected in deep water. Sometimes she'd catch herself watching him from the corner of her eye, wondering what it would be like to actually have a real conversation with him. The closest they'd come to bonding was their weekly routine of nodding at each other in the kitchen while making coffee. Well, she made coffee. He made some kind of herbal tea that smelled like flowers and rain. Then came that Tuesday morning that changed everything. Maya woke up to sirens blaring outside their apartment building. Not just one or two, but dozens of them, creating a wall of sound that made her jump out of bed. She rushed to the window and saw something that made her stomach drop. Military vehicles were setting up barriers at every street corner. Soldiers in hazmat suits were directing people back into their buildings. Her phone buzzed with an emergency alert. Mandatory quarantine in effect. Alien pathogen detected. All residents must remain indoors until further notice. Great. Just perfect. She stumbled into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, expecting to find it empty like usual. Instead, Kale was there, staring out the window with an expression she'd never seen before. He looked worried. Actually worried. Not just his usual distant politeness. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual despite the chaos outside. "I guess we're stuck together for a while." When Kale turned to look at her, something was different. His usual calm demeanor seemed strained, like he was holding back panic. "Maya, this is not good timing." It was the longest sentence he'd ever said to her directly. "Yeah, I know quarantine sucks, but at least we have plenty of food and Netflix," she tried to joke. But Kale didn't smile. Instead, he ran a hand through his dark hair, and she noticed something odd. His fingers were shaking. "You don't understand. I need to leave. Today. This cannot happen." The way he said it made her skin prickle with worry. "What do you mean nobody can leave? Did you see those soldiers outside?" Kale began pacing their small kitchen, moving with that fluid grace, but now it seemed agitated, like a caged animal. "My biology, it works differently than yours. There are certain times when isolation is necessary, when being around others becomes complicated." Maya's scientific brain immediately perked up. Complicated. How? But Kale just shook his head and disappeared into his room, leaving her standing alone in the kitchen with 1,000 questions and no answers. The day passed strangely. Maya tried to focus on her research, reading papers on her laptop while sprawled on the couch, but she kept getting distracted by sounds from Kel's room. He was moving around constantly, and she could hear what sounded like furniture being shifted. A few times she thought she heard him talking, though she couldn't make out words. Maybe he was on a video call with family back home. By evening, she realized she hadn't seen him eat anything all day. The polite thing would be to check on him, right? They were roommates, even if they barely knew each other. She knocked softly on his door. Kale? I made some pasta if you want some. Silence. I know you usually don't eat human food, but I thought maybe. Maya, please. Stay away from my room tonight. His voice sounded strange, deeper somehow, and slightly strained. Are you okay? You sound different. I'm fine. Just tired. Please. But he didn't sound fine. He sounded like someone fighting off a fever. She spent the evening watching mindless TV shows, but her attention kept drifting to his room. The sounds had gotten quieter, but she could still hear him moving around. Once, she thought she saw a strange blue light flickering under his door crack, but when she looked again, it was dark. Around midnight, she decided to go to bed. As she passed his room, she noticed the air felt different, warmer, and there was a scent she couldn't identify, something like ozone mixed with spring flowers. She was about to knock again when she heard him speak, though it sounded like he was talking to himself. Control it. You can control this. She doesn't need to know. Just get through tonight. Maya pressed her ear closer to the door, concern overriding her respect for privacy. The lockdown will end soon. Maybe tomorrow. Just hold on until tomorrow. But even through the door, she could hear the doubt in his voice. That's when she noticed something that made her step back in alarm. The air around his door wasn't just warm anymore. It was almost hot, like standing near a heater. And that strange scent was getting stronger, making her feel oddly lightheaded. She went to bed that night with a growing sense that something big was about to happen, something her textbooks on alien biology had never prepared her for. The next morning, she woke up to find Kale in their tiny living room, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall. He was wearing just a t-shirt and jeans, but his skin seemed to be glowing with a faint blue light. Not like a lamp, more like moonlight. On water, Kale? She said softly, not wanting to startle him, when he looked up at her. His eyes were brighter than she'd ever seen them, almost luminous. Maya, I need to tell you something about my species, about what happens to us sometimes. She sat down across from him, keeping some distance, but close enough to show she was listening. Okay, we have cycles. Biological cycles that happen every few years, and I'm entering one now. He took a deep breath, and she could see it was hard for him to explain. It makes us different, stronger, but also more difficult to control. More intense how? Kel's skin seemed to pulse with that blue light, and the air around him shimmered slightly. My people, we form very strong bonds with partners during these times, bonds that last forever. And being close to someone I care about during this cycle, it could trigger something that can't be undone. Maya's heart skipped a beat. Someone you care about. He looked directly at her then, and she saw something in his expression that took her breath away. Maya, I've been attracted to you since the day you moved in. I've been fighting it because I knew this time was coming, and I knew it could be dangerous for you. The room fell silent except for the sound of sirens still wailing outside. So what does that mean? For us, she whispered. It means we're trapped together at the worst possible time, Kale said, his voice heavy with worry. And I don't know if I'll be strong enough to keep my distance if this gets worse. As if to prove his point, a wave of heat rolled off his body, and Maya felt that strange lightheaded feeling again, stronger this time, outside. The quarantine sirens continued to wail, but inside their small apartment, a completely different kind of emergency was just beginning. Maya spent the rest of that morning pretending to read her textbooks while stealing glances at Kale. He moved to the kitchen and was making that strange tea of his. But his movements were different now, more fluid, like he was dancing instead of just walking around. And that blue glow under his skin seemed to pulse brighter every hour. So, she finally said, closing her laptop because she hadn't absorbed a single word anyway. This cycle thing, how long does it usually last? Kale paused with his cup halfway to his lips. For my people, it depends, usually about a week. But Maya, you need to understand something important. He set the cup down and looked at her seriously. My species, the Zephyrians, we don't just experience physical changes during this time. There are mental aspects too, emotional ones. Like what? Enhanced senses. Everything becomes more intense, colors are brighter, sounds are clearer, emotions are stronger. He gestured vaguely at the space between them. And we release certain chemical signals that can affect others around us. Maya blinked. Chemical signals? You mean like pheromones? Something like that, yes? Kel's skin flickered with that blue light again. That's why I need to stay away from you. These signals, they're designed to attract potential partners. For humans, the effects can be overwhelming, as if he triggered something by mentioning it. Maya suddenly became aware of that flower and rain scent again. It was subtle, but seemed to wrap around her like a warm blanket. She found herself taking deeper breaths without meaning to. Is that happening right now? She asked, feeling slightly dizzy. Kel's eyes widened with alarm. Yes, and it's getting stronger. Maya, I think you should stay in your room for the next few days. Keep the door closed. Maybe open your window for fresh air. But even as he said it, they both knew it was probably too late. The apartment was small, and they shared the same ventilation system. Whatever was affecting the air around Kale was already spreading throughout their living space. What happens if I don't? What happens if I'm exposed to these pheromones or whatever they are? Kale ran his hands through his hair, and Maya noticed his fingers were longer than they'd been yesterday. Not dramatically, but enough to catch her attention. For Zephyrians, it triggers the bonding process. But you're human. I don't know what it might do to you. It could be harmless, or what? Or it could make you feel things that aren't real. Attraction that's just chemical, not genuine. He looked miserable. I've spent months trying to get to know you naturally, and now this stupid biology is going to ruin everything. Maya felt her heart skip. You've been trying to get to know me? Of course I have. Why do you think I always happen to be in the kitchen when you made coffee? Why do you think I learned your schedule so I could accidentally run into you in the hallway? Kel's skin was glowing brighter now, and his eyes seemed to shimmer. I've been completely fascinated by you since day one. Maya, your mind, your curiosity, the way you get excited about your research. But I knew this time was coming, and I didn't want to start something I couldn't finish properly. The room felt warmer, and that floral scent was definitely getting stronger. Maya realized. Her pulse had quickened, though she couldn't tell if it was from his confession or from whatever chemicals were in the air. So what do we do now? I'm going to lock myself in my room, Kale said firmly. I'll stay there until this passes. You can leave food by the door if you want, but please don't come close. And if you start feeling strange, dizzy, or overly emotional, that's the pheromones affecting you. Try to remember it's not real. But as the day went on, Maya began to suspect that what she was feeling might be more real than Kale thought. She tried to follow his advice, staying in the living room while he remained in his bedroom. But the apartment seemed to hum with energy. Now, every surface felt warm to the touch, and the air itself seemed to shimmer occasionally, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. And the dreams. Oh, the dreams were something else entirely. Maya had always been a light sleeper. But that night she fell into the deepest sleep of her life, and she dreamed of things that felt more like memories than imagination. She saw flashes of a blue-tinted world with crystal cities and silver trees. She felt the sensation of flying without wings, of communicating without words. Most strangely, she experienced emotions that felt too big for her human heart, feelings of connection and belonging that seemed to echo from somewhere else entirely. She woke up feeling like she'd lived another life during those few hours of sleep. When she stumbled to the kitchen for coffee, she found that Kale had left his room during the night. There were signs everywhere, a glass in the sink, the refrigerator door slightly ajar, and that blue glow was stronger throughout the apartment now. Kale, she called softly. No answer. She approached his door carefully and pressed her ear against it. She could hear movement inside, restless pacing, and occasionally what sounded like words in a language she didn't recognize. But underneath it all was a sound that worried her, labored breathing, like someone fighting off pain. Kale, are you okay in there? I'm fine, came his voice, but it sounded strained and deeper than usual. Please. Maya, stay away. but she could hear that he wasn't fine. His breathing was getting more ragged, and the temperature around his door was noticeably hotter than the rest of the apartment. As the second day wore on, Maya found herself checking on him more frequently. The sounds from his room were getting more concerning. Sometimes there were long periods of silence, then sudden bursts of movement. Once, she heard what sounded like something crashing to the floor. That evening, as she was heating up leftover takeout, the power went out. The apartment plunged into darkness, and within minutes, the air conditioning stopped working. Summer heat began building up immediately, and Maya realized that Kale, who was already dealing with his own elevated body temperature, was about to be in serious trouble. Kale, she called, abandoning all pretense of staying away. The power's out. She heard a sound from his room that was almost like a whimper. I'm coming in, she announced, not caring about his protests anymore. When she opened his door, the wave of heat that hit her was like opening an oven. Kale was on the floor beside his bed, curled up and shaking. His skin was glowing so brightly she could see clearly even in the blackout, and he was soaked in sweat. Oh my God, you're burning up, she said, rushing to his side. Don't, he whispered, but his voice was so weak she barely heard it. Dangerous? I don't care about dangerous right now, Maya said, kneeling beside him. You're going to overheat if we don't do something. The moment her hand touched his forehead, two things happened simultaneously. First, she felt his temperature and realized he was in genuine medical distress. Second, something electric seemed to pass between them, and suddenly she could feel his emotions as clearly as her own. Fear, pain, desperate longing, and underneath it all, a deep, aching loneliness that nearly broke her heart. Maya, he said, looking up at her with those luminous eyes, you don't understand. If you help me through this, if we connect during my cycle, it changes everything forever. She looked down at this alien man who had been quietly caring about her for months, who was now suffering because he tried to protect her from his own biology. Then maybe it's time for everything to change, she said, making a decision that would alter both their lives in ways neither of them could imagine. Maya had never been the type to make impulsive decisions. She was a scientist, someone who analyzed data and weighed options carefully. But looking down at Kale, seeing him in such distress, all her careful reasoning went out the window. What do you need me to do? She asked, pushing a damp strand of hair away from his forehead. Cool water, he managed to say between labored breaths. Ice if we have any. And Maya, once I stabilize, you need to leave the room immediately. What happens next? The bonding process, it's not something you can undo. She rushed to the kitchen, grabbing every ice pack from the freezer and filling bowls with the coldest water she could manage. The apartment was getting stuffier by the minute without air conditioning, and she could only imagine how much worse it was for Kale. When she returned to his room, he seemed even weaker. The blue glow under his skin was flickering erratically, like a light bulb about to burn out. This is going to be cold, she warned, gently pressing an ice pack to the back of his neck. The moment the cold touched his skin, Kale's eyes flew open, and Maya felt something incredible happen. It was like a door opening in her mind, and suddenly, she wasn't just looking at Kale anymore. She was experiencing what he was experiencing. The overwhelming heat that felt like being trapped inside a furnace. The exhaustion from fighting his body's natural processes for days. And beneath it all, waves of emotion so intense they took her breath away. Maya, he whispered, his voice filled with amazement and fear. You can feel it, can't you? She nodded, unable to speak. Because yes, she could feel it. She could feel his relief at the cool touch, his gratitude for her help, and something else that made her heart race. She could feel his deep, genuine affection for her, not chemically induced, but real and strong and built over months of small interactions. But the connection worked both ways. As she tended to him with more ice packs and cool water, Kel's eyes widened with wonder. You're mine, he said softly. Maya, it's beautiful. Through their unexpected connection, he was experiencing her thoughts and emotions too. Her scientific curiosity about his condition, yes, but also her genuine care for him. Her worry about his health, and her own feelings that she'd been pushing down for months. The attraction she'd felt watching him move through their apartment like he was dancing on air. "Is this the bonding thing you were talking about?" she asked, helping him sit up against the wall. His temperature was dropping, but the strange connection between them was growing stronger. "It's the beginning," Cale said, looking at her with a mixture of wonder and concern. "Maya, I need you to understand something. Among my people, this kind of mental connection only happens between true life partners. It means our minds, our very life forces, are starting to sync together." "What does that mean exactly?" Cale took her hand, and the moment their skin touched, the connection deepened. Maya suddenly found herself flooded with images and sensations that weren't her own. She saw his home planet, a world of crystal spires and flowing water. She felt his loneliness during his first months on Earth, struggling to understand human customs. She experienced his joy the first time she'd smiled at him in their kitchen. "It means we'd be connected for life," he said. "My people mate for life, Maya. Once this bond is complete, we'd share each other's emotions, each other's life energy. If one of us got hurt, the other would feel it. If one of us died." He couldn't finish the sentence. Maya sat back, trying to process what she was feeling. The connection was incredible, like having another person's heart beating in rhythm with hers. But it was also overwhelming. "How long do we have to decide?" she asked. "Not long. A few hours at most. The bond is forming naturally because we're compatible, but there's still time to break it if that's what you want." Kel's voice was steady, but through their connection, she could feel his inner turmoil. "Maya, I won't lie to you. I want this more than I've ever wanted anything, but only if it's truly what you want too." She looked at this alien man who had been quietly part of her life for months, who she was now connected to in a way she'd never imagined possible. Through their bond, she could feel his genuine care for her well-being, his willingness to let her go if that's what was best for her. What would happen if we completed the bond? Besides the life connection, Kel's skin began to glow more steadily as his condition stabilized, enhanced abilities for both of us. Longer lifespan. We'd be able to communicate without speaking, sense each other's location and emotional state. And he paused, looking uncertain. There would be physical changes too. "What kind of physical changes?" "For you, probably enhanced strength and senses, better healing. For me, your human adaptability would strengthen my own abilities." He squeezed her hand gently. "But Maya, there's something else you need to know. This isn't just about us. An interspecies bond like this, it's incredibly rare. Both our peoples would be very interested in studying us." Maya thought about her research, her dreams of understanding how different species could coexist. "That could be good though, right? We could help bridge the gap between humans and aliens. It could be. Or it could mean a lifetime of being treated like research subjects ourselves." The storm outside seemed to be getting worse, but inside their small apartment, Maya felt surprisingly calm. Maybe it was the bonding process affecting her emotions. Or maybe it was just the certainty she felt growing inside her chest. "Cale, can I ask you something? Of course, if we weren't bonding, if this was just a normal situation, would you want to be with me anyway, through their connection?" She felt his answer before he spoke it. A wave of warmth, affection, and deep admiration washed over her. "Maya, I've been falling for you since the day you moved in. The way you get excited about your research. How you always save me leftovers even though I never ask. How you sing off-key in the shower and don't care who hears." He smiled, and she felt his joy through their bond. This connection isn't creating feelings that weren't already there. It's just letting us finally be honest about them. Maya realized that her decision had already been made somewhere deep inside her heart. The bonding process wasn't forcing her to feel something artificial. It was just amplifying what had been growing naturally between them all along. "So what happens next?" she asked. "Next, we decide together. But Maya, once we start the full bonding process, there's no going back. Are you absolutely sure this is what you want?" She looked at Cale. This incredible alien man who had been quietly caring about her for months, who was willing to let her go even though it would break his heart. Through their connection, she could feel his love for her, genuine and deep and patient. I'm sure, she said, and meant it completely. Then we begin, Cale said, his skin beginning to glow brighter as the storm raged on outside their window. The next few hours passed in a blur of discovery and wonder. As the storm continued outside, Maya and Cale sat together in his room, learning about each other in ways she'd never imagined possible. The partial bond between them had stabilized, creating a gentle connection that let them share thoughts and feelings. Without overwhelming either of them, "Tell me about your world," Maya said. Settling against the wall beside him, the ice packs had done their job, and Cale's temperature was back to normal, though his skin still held that soft blue glow. Through their connection, she felt his surprise at her request. "You really want to know? I've always wanted to know. I just never knew how to ask without seeming like I was treating you like a research subject." Cale smiled, and Maya felt his happiness warm her chest like sunshine. "My planet, Zephyr, it's mostly water and crystal formations. We build our cities to work with the natural environment rather than against it. Everything flows together, like music made visible." As he spoke, images began forming in Maya's mind. She saw towering spires that seemed to grow from the ground, like trees, but made of some kind of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. Waterways that flowed through buildings instead of around them. People who moved with the same fluid grace as Cale, their skin shifting through different shades of blue and green depending on their emotions. "It's beautiful," she whispered, seeing his childhood home through his memories. "But you left all that to come study here?" "I volunteered for the exchange program because I wanted to understand other species. My people. We're naturally empathic, but we'd never encountered beings like humans before. Your emotions are so intense, so immediate. I was fascinated." Maya laughed. "You think human emotions are intense? You should feel what I'm feeling right now." And through their bond, he could. Maya felt his amazement as he experienced her complex mix of wonder, affection, and nervous excitement about what they were doing. "Maya," he said softly, "I need to tell you something important about what happens next." She turned to face him, fully, noting how his eyes seemed to hold starlight. "Okay, the full bonding process. It's not just mental. There are physical aspects too, and cultural ceremonies that my people consider sacred. If we complete this bond, we won't just be connected to each other. We'll be connected to my entire species' history of bonded pairs." "What does that mean?" Cale took her hands, and Maya felt a wave of ancient wisdom flow through their connection. Every Zephyrian who has ever formed a life bond has contributed to what we call the eternal song. It's like a vast library of shared experiences, knowledge, and love that bonded pairs can access. You become part of that, Maya, a human voice in an alien symphony. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. Would I still be me, more yourself than ever? Cale assured her, "The bond doesn't change who you are. It enhances it. But Maya, there's something else you need to consider. An interspecies bond like ours. It's never happened before. We'd be the first. There could be consequences we can't predict." Maya felt his worry through their connection, but also his excitement at the possibility of breaking new ground together. What kind of consequences? Enhanced abilities, yes, but also responsibilities. Both our governments would want to study. U.S., we might become symbols of cooperation between our species, or targets if some people think what we're doing is wrong. Cale's skin flickered with concern. "And there's no going back, Maya. If we do this, we're committed to each other for life, literally. Our life forces become intertwined." Maya spent a long moment thinking about everything he told her. Through their partial bond, she could feel Cale's patience, his willingness to wait for her decision without pressure. She could also feel his deep love for her, not just romantic attraction but genuine admiration for her mind, her curiosity, her courage. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Anything. If I say yes, if we complete this bond, what would our life together actually look like? Day to day, I mean." Cale's expression softened. we'd still be ourselves. You'd still be a brilliant scientist. I'd still be figuring out my place in the universe. But we'd face everything together. We could communicate without words when we needed to. We'd never have to wonder what the other person was really thinking or feeling. And Maya, his voice grew tender, we'd have a love that literally transcends species barriers. Through their connection, Maya felt the depth of what he was offering, not just romance, but true partnership, someone who would understand her completely, support her dreams, share in her discoveries. What about children? She asked, blushing as soon as the words left her mouth. Kel's surprise rippled through their bond, followed quickly by wonder. I don't know. It's never been attempted before. But Maya, even if it's possible, that would be years in the future. Right now, this is just about us. The storm outside seemed to be calming, and Maya realized they were running out of time. Soon, the power would come back on, the quarantine would lift, and the outside world would intrude on this incredible bubble they'd created. Kale, what happens if we don't complete the bond? What happens to this connection we have now? We could maintain it as is, he said carefully, a partial bond that lets us share emotions and some thoughts. But it would fade over time if not. Reinforced, in a few months, we'd be back to being regular roommates. Maya tried to imagine going back to their old dynamic. Polite nods in the kitchen and careful distance. After experiencing this level of connection, the thought felt unbearably lonely, and if we do complete it, then we become something new. Not human, not Zephyrian, but something that bridges both worlds. Kel's skin began to glow brighter as his emotions intensified. Maya, I want this more than I've ever wanted anything, but only if you're choosing it for the right reasons. Not because of the bonding process, not because we're trapped together, but because it's what your heart truly wants. Maya closed her eyes and really examined her feelings, trying to separate what might be chemical influence from what was genuinely her own choice. What she found surprised her. The attraction to Kale had been growing for months, long before his cycle began. Her fascination with his culture, her desire to understand him better, her happiness when she saw him in their shared spaces, none of that was artificial. I keep thinking about something you said earlier, she told him, about how this connection isn't creating feelings that weren't already there. It's just letting us be honest about them, yes? Well, then I want to be completely honest with you. Maya opened her eyes and looked directly at him. I've been interested in you since the day you moved in. I've been hoping for months that you'd open up to me, let me get to know the real you, this bond. It's not forcing me to feel something I don't want to feel. It's giving me the chance to explore something I've wanted all along. Kel's joy blazed through their connection like sunrise. Maya, are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying yes, she said firmly. I want to complete the bond. I want to be with you, connected to you for whatever comes next, even knowing all the risks, all the unknowns. Maya smiled, feeling more certain than she'd ever felt about anything, especially knowing the risks. That's what makes it an adventure, as if responding to her decision. The blue glow under Kel's skin began to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Then we finished what we started, he said, his voice filled with love and wonder. Outside, the first rays of dawn were beginning to break through the storm clouds, and Maya knew that by the time the sun fully rose, everything in her life would be different. Maya woke up feeling like she'd been reborn. The first thing she noticed was the warmth in her chest, a steady presence that felt like a second heartbeat. The second thing was that her vision was incredibly sharp. She could see dust particles floating in the morning sunlight streaming through Kel's window, each one perfectly clear and defined. The third thing was Kel's voice in her mind, soft and wondering. Good morning, my bonded one. She turned to find him sitting beside her, his skin now glowing with a steady, peaceful blue light. But something was different about him too. He looked stronger somehow, more solid, like he gained substance overnight. Is it done? She asked. Though she already knew the answer, she could feel it in every cell of her body. This connection that went deeper than thought or emotion. It's done, Kale confirmed. And through their bond she felt his joy mixed with awe. Maya, how do you feel? She sat up carefully, testing her body's responses. Everything felt heightened but not overwhelming. Her hearing was more acute, picking up sounds from several apartments away. Her sense of touch was enhanced too. She could feel the texture of the bed sheets in incredible detail. Different, but good different. She looked at her hands and was amazed to see a very faint shimmer under her skin, like moonlight on water. Is that normal? You're taking on some Zephyrian characteristics, and I'm taking on some human ones. Kale flexed his fingers, and Maya noticed they looked more solid now, less ethereal. I can feel things more deeply now, emotions that used to be subtle. And I think I understand human determination in a way I never did before. Through their bond, Maya could sense what he meant. She felt more emotionally flexible, able to adapt to new situations with an ease that seemed very Zephyrian. Meanwhile, Kale radiated a new kind of focused energy that felt distinctly human. So we're both changed, she said, reaching for his hand. The moment their fingers touched, their connection deepened, and suddenly she could sense everything he was feeling. Not just emotions, but physical sensations too. Wow, that's intense. It'll settle as we get used to it, Kale assured her. Maya, there's something else. The eternal song, the collective knowledge of my people, you have access to it now. As if his words had triggered something, Maya suddenly became aware of a vast presence at the edge of her consciousness. It felt like standing at the shore of an infinite ocean, knowing she could dive in whenever she chose. That's incredible, she whispered. I can feel it. All that history and knowledge. And through you, my people will learn about humanity in ways they never could before. Kale's voice was filled with wonder. Maya, we've done something that's never been done before. The sound of sirens ending outside brought them back to the present moment. The quarantine was lifting, which meant they'd have to face the world. Soon. Are you ready for what comes next? Maya asked, through their bond. She felt Kale's mixture of excitement and nervousness. I think so. But Maya, things are going to move fast once people find out what we've done. Are you prepared for that? She considered this. Through their connection, she could access some of Kel's knowledge about interspecies politics. And she realized he was right. Their bond would be big news, both on Earth and on Zephyr. What kind of attention are we talking about? Scientists will want to study us. Governments will want to understand the implications. Some people will see us as proof that humans and aliens can coexist peacefully. Others might see us as a threat to species purity. Kel's skin flickered with concern. There might be protesters, media attention, people who want to use us as symbols for their own agendas. Maya felt a surge of her new Zephyrian adaptability kick in. Then we handle it together. Besides, think about what we could accomplish. You said yourself that your people wanted to understand humans better, and I've been studying interspecies cooperation my whole career. We could actually make a difference. Their conversation was interrupted by Maya's phone buzzing with messages. The outside world was definitely waking up. The first text was from her research advisor. Maya, are you okay? University wants to debrief all students who were in quarantine. Also, there are some interesting readings from your apartment building. Call me ASAP. The second was from her best friend, girl. What happened during that quarantine? You sound different in your voicemail. Happy different, but different. Maya looked at Kale, feeling his amusement through their bond. I guess we can't hide this. For long, we don't have to hide it, he said. In fact, I think we shouldn't. Maya, what we have, it's beautiful. It's proof that connection can transcend any barrier if people are willing to be open to it. Over the next few hours, as they finally emerged from their apartment and began dealing with the outside world, Maya discovered just how much their bond enhanced both their abilities. When she met with her advisor, she found herself able to explain complex xenobiological concepts with an intuitive understanding she'd never had before. Meanwhile, Kel's interactions with human officials were smoother and more natural than they'd ever been. The attention came quickly, just as Kale had predicted. Within days, their story had spread through both human and alien networks. Scientists wanted to study their bond, journalists wanted interviews, and government officials wanted to understand the implications. But through it all, Maya and Kale faced everything together when protesters gathered outside their apartment building, calling their bond unnatural. They could support each other through their shared strength. When scientists subjected them to endless tests, they could share the burden between them. The most amazing discovery came 3 weeks after their bonding, when Maya was working in her lab. She'd been struggling with a particularly complex protein analysis when suddenly the solution became crystal clear. Not because she'd figured it out, but because Kale, working across campus in his own research, had solved a similar problem and shared the insight through their bond. Did you just help me solve a biochemistry problem from the physics lab? She asked him that evening. Did you just help me understand gravitational wave patterns through biological analysis? He replied, grinning. They stared at each other in amazement before breaking into laughter. We're like a two-person think tank, Maya said. Better than that, Kale corrected. We're proof that different perspectives make each other stronger. 6 months later, they were offered positions with the newly formed Interspecies Cooperation Institute, a joint human-alien organization dedicated to fostering understanding between different species. The work would take them off-world, to research stations where humans and aliens work side by side as they packed their belongings. Maya reflected on how much had changed since that day. They'd been trapped together during quarantine. Do you ever regret it? She asked Kale as they sealed the last box. Giving up your normal life for this craziness? Through their bond, she felt his response before he spoke it, absolute certainty and joy. Maya, before I bonded with you, I was just existing, learning about humans from the outside, never really connecting with anyone. Now I'm living. He took her hands, and their connection blazed with shared happiness. Besides, normal is overrated. I'd rather have extraordinary with you. Maya looked around their apartment one last time, remembering the awkward roommates they'd been just months ago. Now they were partners in every sense of the word, bonded for life and ready to explore the universe together. You know what the best part is? She said as they headed for the door. What? We're just getting started. As they walked out into their new life together, Maya couldn't help but smile at the thought that being trapped with her alien roommate had turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to her. Sometimes the most beautiful discoveries came from the most unexpected circumstances.